State of Cannabis.
This is the State of Cannabis News Digest, a roundup of this week's key developments in the cannabis industry.
Our top stories.
North Carolina's unregulated cannabis market may soon see reform as the state launches a task force to create a structured, legal framework. With unanimous House support, Massachusetts is closer to revamping its cannabis regulatory framework and better integrating hemp into the legal market. Texas is set to overhaul its medical cannabis program with new patient eligibility and expanded dispensary access. And now, here is the deeper look at the key events in the cannabis world this week.
In Arkansas, medical marijuana sales are reaching new highs in 2025. State officials report that over $121 million worth of cannabis was sold in the first 5 months of the year, which is an increase of more than 6% compared to the same period in 2024. According to the published report, the volume of marijuana sold has also risen, with dispensaries across the state moving more than 32,000 pounds of product. This amounts to roughly 6,000 pounds each month. This surge is closely tied to the rising number of medical marijuana patients. The Arkansas Department of Health has issued nearly 110,000 active medical marijuana cards. This is a 13% increase since the beginning of 2025. Tax revenue from the program is also climbing, averaging nearly $3 million monthly. These funds contribute to the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences National Cancer Designation Trust Fund and other public programs. Top-performing dispensaries across cities like Hot Springs, Sherwood, and Conway report hundreds of pounds sold each month. Since medical marijuana sales began in 2019, Arkansas has seen steady year-over-year growth, with the exception of a slight dip in 2024. With average daily sales of over $800,000 and the patient population expanding, Arkansas may still surpass its previous record of $283 million in cannabis sales set in 2023.
In Sacramento, the California Assembly has voted unanimously to delay a planned cannabis excise tax increase, offering critical relief to a legal industry facing mounting pressures. Assembly Bill 564, introduced by Democrat Matt Haney, would push back a scheduled tax hike from 15% to 19% until the 2030 fiscal year. The goal is to give the state's licensed marijuana businesses breathing room amid high taxation, limited local access, and stiff competition from illicit sellers. The bill's backers include the UFCW Western States Council and the California Cannabis Industry Association, all of whom argue that the legal market cannot absorb more taxation. Advocates point out that cannabis in California is already taxed far more than alcohol and tobacco, leaving businesses unable to compete with untaxed, unregulated alternatives. AB 564 also includes a transparency measure, requiring the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration to report annually to lawmakers on the financial outcomes of keeping the tax rate steady. These reports are intended to help future legislators weigh fiscal revenue needs against industry sustainability. The legislation now moves to the Senate, where the industry insiders hope it will be fast-tracked as part of a budget trailer bill, allowing it to take effect before the July 1st deadline. If not expedited, the hike could remain in place until January 20, 26, even if the bill is ultimately passed. As other states move forward with increasing cannabis taxes, California's decision to delay may become a bellwether in the ongoing conversation about how best to balance public revenue with the survival of the legal cannabis industry.
Want to stay ahead of the smoke in America's evolving cannabis landscape? Subscribe to State of Cannabis, Weekly News Digest, your trusted source for fact-checked, nonpartisan cannabis reporting. Each week, we bring you the latest on federal reforms, state laws, industry shifts, and public health developments, all in one digestible episode. Whether you're a policymaker, patient, advocate, or entrepreneur, we've got the information you need to stay informed. Hit follow, give us a like or a thumbs up. Drop a review or leave a comment. Share this episode with someone who cares about cannabis reform. Because in this industry, knowledge isn't just power, it's survival.
In early June, Massachusetts took a major step toward reshaping its cannabis industry. House lawmakers voted 153-0 to pass Bill H. 4187, a sweeping reform package designed to increase government oversight, fix regulatory inefficiencies, and support both consumers and cannabis businesses. A key feature of the bill is the overhaul of the Cannabis Control Commission. Long criticized for dysfunction and slow decision-making, the CCC would be reduced from 5 to 3 members, all appointed by the governor, this time under the new structure. One member would serve as a full-time chair, and the commission would be held to new accountability and ethics standards. For medical marijuana operators in Massachusetts, the bill removes the vertical integration requirement, allowing businesses to focus solely on retail, cultivation, or production. This aims to make it easier for new players to enter the market and provide greater access for patients. Retail license caps, currently set at 3, would rise incrementally to 6 over 3 years. While proponents say this flexibility supports business growth, critics argue it could crowd out smaller operators and social equity businesses. The bill also proposes new regulations and taxes on hemp-based products. For the first time, intoxicating hemp products like THC drinks and edible CBD would be taxed and regulated. These products would only be available through licensed alcohol retailers and registered with the CCC in a move to protect consumers and restrict youth access. Although H. 4187 cleared the House with bipartisan backing, its path forward in the Senate remains uncertain. Until both chambers align on a final version, Massachusetts cannabis businesses and consumers remain in a holding pattern, waiting to see what the future of their industry will look like.
Minnesota's recreational cannabis market is finally beginning to take shape, 2 years after legalization. On June 5th, the Office of Cannabis Management held its long-anticipated business license lottery, selecting 249 winners from a pool of 776 pre-screened applicants. Most of the winners are social equity applicants, veterans, individuals from high-poverty areas, or those affected by previous marijuana convictions. These entrepreneurs must now clear a series of regulatory hurdles, including background checks, zoning approvals, labor agreements, and inspections. Entrepreneurs are already preparing storefronts in hopes of opening by August, with joy after months of uncertainty. Yet the path ahead isn't without obstacles, as supply chain limitations and the time it takes to cultivate cannabis could delay store openings or strain early inventory. Meanwhile, many of those who didn't win licenses still have options. A second retail license lottery is set for July, and the state continues processing applications for micro-businesses, testing labs, and other uncapped categories. Minnesota's tribal nations, including White Earth Nation, already operate cultivation and retail facilities under compacts with the state, and may help support the early supply chain for licensed retailers. While it may take months or even a year for the market to reach full capacity, Minnesota's cannabis industry is finally beginning to bud.
Nevada has taken another step to align its public policy with its cannabis laws. Governor Joe Lombardo signed Assembly Bill 107 into law, updating state regulations that previously barred individuals with marijuana possession convictions from participating in the foster care system. Until now, state law treated these convictions, regardless of how long ago they occurred, as grounds for disqualification. A B-107 changes that by allowing individuals with non-sale possession convictions older than 5 years to apply for foster care licenses or to live or work in foster homes. The bill was championed by Assemblymember Tracy Brown May and passed with bipartisan support. Advocates say the change will help ease Nevada's foster care staffing challenges by welcoming qualified caregivers who were previously excluded due to outdated drug policies. Research supports the idea that easing such restrictions could have positive outcomes. Studies have shown that medical marijuana legalization correlates with a drop in foster care entries due to parental drug misuse. Nevada's move represents a broader shift toward restorative cannabis policy reform and reflects ongoing efforts in the state legislature to revise outdated rules in light of modern drug law realities.
North Carolina is officially entering the national conversation on cannabis reform. On June 4th, Governor Josh Stein signed an executive order creating the North Carolina Advisory Council on Cannabis. This new bipartisan task force, composed of lawmakers, law enforcement, health experts, tribal leaders, and industry stakeholders, is charged with recommending how the state should regulate intoxicating THC products, prevent youth access, and potentially legalize marijuana for adult use. Stein's motivation is clear. The current market is dangerously unregulated. Hemp-derived THC products are legally available across the state, often without age restrictions or ingredient labeling. Health data show alarming increases in cannabis-related ER visits among minors, prompting the governor to call the situation insane and the Wild West. Stein wants to replace chaos with a smart, safe regulatory system that protects youth and empowers adults to make informed choices. The council will hold its first meeting in July, and its initial report is due by May 20, 26. It will also explore criminal justice reform, including the expungement of low-level cannabis offenses, particularly those rooted in racially disproportionate enforcement. While full legalization will require approval from the GOP-controlled legislature, growing bipartisan interest and public support suggest that change could be on the horizon. Until then, the medical program offered by the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians remains the only way to get legal cannabis in North Carolina.
In Ohio this week, a tug-of-war over cannabis policy revealed the growing pains of a young legalization market and raised questions about how much power lawmakers should have to revise what voters approved. On one side, regulators expanded access. The daily purchase limit for adult-use cannabis flower more than doubled from 1 ounce to 2.5. That change, now in effect, reflects strong supply and over $500 million in sales since legalization began last August. Officials say aligning purchase limits with possession laws improves clarity and consumer convenience. Dispensaries are adjusting operations accordingly, while maintaining separate protocols for medical patients. But at the same time, state lawmakers advanced sweeping revisions to the voter-approved framework under Senate Bill 56. Their proposals include limiting dispensary licenses, banning some forms of cannabis sharing, and redirecting tax revenue away from community reinvestment programs. After public backlash, legislators softened some provisions, like removing criminal penalties for adults sharing cannabis privately. But critics say core elements of the original law are still under threat.
As Pennsylvania races toward its June 30th budget deadline, Governor Josh Shapiro is doubling down on calls to legalize adult-use marijuana as part of the state's broader fiscal and justice reform plan. During a June 2nd press conference, Shapiro called the current situation unsustainable, pointing out that 60% of customers at Maryland cannabis dispensaries are Pennsylvanians. The House passed a cannabis legalization bill weeks ago, proposing a state-run dispensary model. But Senate Republicans rejected the measure, citing concerns over government overreach and market flexibility. Despite the setback, bipartisan talks have continued. Lawmakers such as Representative Abby Major and Representative Emily Kinkead are preparing a compromise bill that would allow privately licensed businesses to sell cannabis. Meanwhile, Democratic Senators Sharif Street and Marty Flynn are also working on legislation that could meet Senate demands while keeping the cannabis debate alive during budget negotiations. Governor Shapiro emphasized that legalization isn't just about revenue, it's about fairness and regulation. He wants the law to include expungement for low-level cannabis offenses and to help dismantle the illicit market. Agencies from agriculture to public health have expressed readiness to oversee an adult use market, and surveys show most Pennsylvanians support legalization. Still, Senate leadership remains divided. While some Republicans are cautiously open to reform, Senate Majority Leader Joe Pittman has said consensus hasn't yet emerged. That leaves legalization hanging in the balance as fiscal deadlines loom, and both parties must decide whether cannabis will be part of Pennsylvania's 2025 budget deal or remain on hold once again.
In Texas this week, cannabis policy is sending mixed signals, offering expansion with one hand while threatening contraction with the other. Lawmakers have passed House Bill 46, a sweeping overhaul of the state's medical cannabis program. If signed by Governor Greg Abbott, the bill will allow physicians to prescribe low-THC cannabis to patients suffering from chronic pain, traumatic brain injuries, Crohn's disease, and more, bringing Texas closer in line with other medical use states. The law also strengthens patient protections, broadens the types of cannabis products allowed, including patches and vaporizers, and formalizes medical inhalation in aerosol form. Access is central to the reform. The bill orders the licensing of at least 12 new dispensing organizations, bringing the total to at least 15. These organizations will also be able to operate satellite storage and pickup sites, including in underserved public health regions. Municipalities will be barred from banning these operations, preventing local governments from opting out. But just as the state opens new pathways for patients and dispensaries, it may close others. A separate bill, Senate Bill 3, would ban the sale of all consumable hemp-derived THC products, including the very vapes and edibles that many Texans now use as affordable, over-the-counter alternatives. Critics argue that this would dismantle an $8 billion industry employing more than 50,000 people, while veterans and patients warn it could cut off essential access for those not covered by the compassionate use program.
The cannabis world is changing fast, and the State of Cannabis Weekly News Digest is your anchor in the storm. Every week, we break down the top national stories in under 15 to 20 minutes, helping growers, patients, retailers, and reformers make sense of the shifting landscape. If we've helped you make better decisions, take a moment to like, follow, review, and share the podcast wherever you are consuming it with someone who needs to hear the truth. This industry is growing. Let's grow smarter, together.
On the federal level, the future of the hemp industry is once again under fire. This week, a House subcommittee led by Representative Andy Harris, a Republican from Maryland, introduced a federal budget proposal that includes a sweeping redefinition of hemp. If passed, the bill would ban any product with a quantifiable amount of THC or cannabinoids with similar effects, including Delta-8, THCA flower, and even full-spectrum CBD oils, effectively outlawing most consumable hemp products now legally sold across the country. While the bill would allow hemp to be used for industrial purposes like fiber and grain, it would eliminate the legal footing for the fast-growing sector of cannabinoid-infused beverages, gummies, and vapes. Hemp advocates call the bill job-killing and warn of devastating consequences for farmers, small businesses, and millions of consumers who use these products for wellness and recreation. This isn't the first time such language has been proposed. Similar amendments failed in past Farm Bill discussions, but its reappearance in a must-pass spending bill has the hemp industry on high alert. Calls are growing louder for Congress to establish a clear regulatory framework for hemp and cannabinoids rather than impose blanket bans. The federal crackdown reflects a broader trend, as several states, including Texas and Florida, have also passed laws restricting hemp-derived THC. Meanwhile, industries like alcohol are lobbying for regulations on cannabis beverages they see as market competition. As the debate intensifies, the fate of the national hemp market hangs in the balance.
In international news, in a landmark moment for public health in Eastern Europe, Ukraine has authorized its first import of medical cannabis. On June 2nd, the state medical service issued a permit for a registered cannabis substance to legally enter the country. This follows the legalization of medical cannabis in 2024 under President Volodymyr Zelensky, who called for adopting international best practices to help Ukrainians cope with the physical and psychological toll of war. The move reflects both humanitarian urgency and evolving public policy. Initially intended to support cancer patients and those suffering from PTSD due to the war with Russia, the program now extends to patients with Parkinson's disease, epilepsy, chronic pain, anorexia, and other serious conditions. According to the Ministry of Health, over 6 million Ukrainians could benefit from cannabis-based therapies. Earlier this year, Ukraine registered its first cannabis-based product, oral drops from Spanish manufacturer Curaleaf, and is expected to broaden access to additional forms like capsules, gels, and tinctures. While the import permit is the first, it signals the beginning of an international supply chain that may include partners from Europe and North America. Domestically, Ukraine has structured its regulatory oversight across multiple agencies, with the Ministry of Agrarian Policy managing cultivation and the State Medical Service and National Police overseeing import and distribution. In contrast to Russia's hardline stance on cannabis at the international level, Ukraine's policy shift positions the country within a growing global movement to treat cannabis as a legitimate medical resource, particularly in times of national crisis.
This was the State of Cannabis News Digest, available weekly. You can listen to us on all main podcast platforms. To make sure you don't miss out on the latest updates and in-depth analysis of the cannabis industry, be sure to subscribe to our podcast. By subscribing, you'll get notifications for each new episode, helping you stay informed and ahead in the ever-evolving cannabis market. Join us next Saturday for more insights. Until then, keep thriving and stay green.